Hey everybody, this is John, front-end developer here, giving you a walkthrough of the Webflow interface, especially for you guys who enjoy your life in the text editor and now have been given a golden ticket to experience Webflow for the first time. This is your overview. I'm going to set this up and use the vernacular hopefully you're used to, and if not, leave a comment, let me know. So let's start at the top left, gaboosh. We're going to start with the plus sign. And really what we're going to be doing here is talking about adding elements. So this main area is effectively the HTML page. And as we hit the plus sign, we'll see that there are a number of elements that Webflow has put in there. Some are sections and containers that have some pre-formatting to them. And columns are things like the COL type block. But for the most part, you're going to be using a lot of these basic elements to create your pages and layouts, blocks, lists, and buttons. And as we scroll down through here, there's typography as well. Rich text is the only thing that's really special in that it's like a block that is meant to have nested inline elements to it. You usually use this on a blog detail page, but you can also use it in a section, and it really allows content editors, because the power of this is the CMS piece, the editor piece. It allows a content creator to effectively add images or list items to any block of text. So that's a little bit more of a powerful thing. I'm going to keep skimming down here. One of the notable things here is that you can add video, but this is really a video embed. They don't allow you to host, or they don't host your videos for you yet, unless it's a background video, which there's a component for, and there's a limitation there in 30 megs. One of the exciting parts, and I think one of the things that Webflow is constantly showcasing, is the Lottie animation element. And effectively, this is a container for a Lottie, and once you throw your JSON file in there, you can have it loop and do some of the basic Lottie functions. But then you can also, up here, there is an animation library built in, and you can trigger that on scroll and do some of those things. So again, it's a helper. If you haven't done Lottie much, this is a great way of getting started on it, and there's a lot of tutorials out there. On the forms, I won't go into any of this too much, but I will say this, that when you drop a form block on, it'll automatically get wired up in the back end to be able to send emails. So that's really nice if you're trying to set up a contact page. It's kind of done for you. Last but not least, components. There's that background video from like 2005, 6, still rocking and rolling with a play pause. Drop downs are generally used for things like in nav, when you've got a drop down in a nav. There is a nav bar component that has a built-in hamburger menu that'll show and hide, and there's a little gear thing that opens or closes, but this is used a lot by Webflow developers. And then there's an embed for embedding HTML, CSS, if you want to just do it inline. And this is really appropriate for when you've got a newsletter or something like that. We don't really want to put JavaScript and script tags in the middle of the page, do we? I don't think so. And then they also have a carousel component. It works. It's very basic, and it works. Most of the guys I know still go back to their sliders, their jQuery based stuff, or something custom. So it's just worth noting, this might do if you just need something simple, but you'll probably end up doing something custom. So just to start us off here, let's talk about adding elements to the DOM. There's 3 ways to do it. One is to click. It'll show up. The second way is to drag, which is nice if you're going to nest something. You'll see on the top right there, it's showing you where it's going to go. And the third way, and the most powerful way, is actually to hit Command E. E is for everything. And the Find Anything tool is really for the elements menu. And so I can start typing D, and div block shows up. I hit return, it adds it. And they've got a bunch of helpers for that. So that's just a really nice feature. So I just want to cover adding elements to the HTML. That's the DOM. So the second thing I want to show you is the navigator. If you hit the Z button, you'll actually see the hierarchy of the page, and you can drag and drop it, nest things. You can use all your copy and paste commands, which is really nice. And you can use these across pages as well to paste on. You can also copy and paste HTML from a text editor. So if you built a page statically and you're trying to bring it in over, you can actually paste HTML in here, which is kind of fun. It doesn't work perfectly every time, but it's a nice to have. And you can do the other things that you would do on a Mac and Windows machine, where you can hold the Option key and drag, and it's going to duplicate it that way as well. So that's the navigator. You can think of that as the Hamel area, maybe, if you really want to get nuts. But yeah, that's what it is. And then last but not least, on the page, pages, I should say, this is where you're going to add more pages, but we're on the home page right now. And if you hit the gear icon, this is where you're going to have access to some of the header things like the title tag, meta description, open graph stuff. you know, some of these things I think we've got templates for, right? We'll start a page and have these things, but it's nice to have a section that's neat and easy to edit. And then lastly on this is a custom code area. Now, this is specific to this page. So if you're going to do a GDPR or, you know, have some JavaScript library that's going to be on top of everything, you're going to do that in a separate area. You're not going to do it at each page. But there is one inside the head before the body. There's a way to inject some code, some scripts, some styles in there if you really want to. So I think the most common use case I think is having kind of a cool splash thing happen on the home page when you'd use this, or maybe your newsletter's constrained to a certain page or analytics or something. But generally speaking, this isn't used. You're going to use the one that's globally included. That's the left side. Okay, so we're really just focused on the HTML side of things. So you've got your plus, you got your navigator to kind of get you situated, maybe select an element this way or here. This is a way of selecting elements. But I think where it starts to get kind of cool and interesting is if we slide over to the right side. Gadoosh. So this paintbrush is effectively the universal symbol for CSS, just so you know. Okay, paintbrushes. At the top here is selector. Selector's a cool way of saying class. It is a little bit more sophisticated than that, but effectively this is where you're going to put your class names on. So for me here for this div, I might call it a wrapper. Some of you guys are bounds people. I don't know what's going on anymore with the semantic web. Is that semantic web? I don't know, but the container names are all over the place. So you can add a class. You can do a combo class as well. You know, once I've got wrapper here, I might say no padding or XL padding. What are you guys doing right now? I'm not really sure. So you can do combo classes as well. The thing that there also is a few pseudo things like hover, and this menu will get bigger if you're using a button. So you can do some of those states, as well as they've got this really cool accessibility thing, which is the focus keyboard. You can basically, if you start using tab on a screen, you know, somebody who's visually impaired or using a screen reader, if you're using tab, you can actually change the style so that it highlights certain areas as you tab down the screen. It's super great. It's a new feature. Webflow does an amazing job on the inclusion side of things. They've got inspectors for looking at how well your contrast is going. They're going to give you alerts if you forgot to put alt tags in. It's great for that. So huge props to you guys for doing that. As you scroll down on the right side, you're going to find all the properties that you would want to put or be able to put on any element. So here's your display properties. And I think where some of the power really comes in is, for me, I don't really subscribe and memorize to like every little thing that the Flexbox or grid can do. I know some of you guys are like hardcore, and of course you do, but I like started Frontend in the 90s, so like Flexbox is like the nicest thing to have in the world. As far as I'm concerned, we should do a table-based layout, use Macromedia Dreamweaver, live our dreams, drink PBRs. So if I click on this Flexbox, you'll see you can flip. I mean, it's all the properties you'd expect. You can flip it to horizontal and vertical and change the orientation, and the grids get even more nuts. But it kind of does all those things in a visual way, and I think that's super helpful when you're looking at a Figma design and you're translating things and you need to kind of see what it's going to look like. In the spacing and padding, this stuff's kind of cool because there are shortcuts, so I can drag this to size it. I can hold the option key to restrict it. I can hold the option shift to double restrict it. So I mean, you know, for you guys, you're just going to put margin 28 pixels and it's going to do this, but I don't know, I kind of like the shortcut keys, to be honest. And the other thing too is you can change the units within here to your rems, so it's got all those things in there as well as some presets. So I think that's pretty nice. Where it starts to pay off maybe when you get down to like fonts is if you're using relative font sizes, and right now what we're looking at is in orange, everything is highlighted. The body tag is inheriting an Arial font in size 14 for some reason. Why not? But if you're working in M's or Rems, this area for size, you can do calculations on the fly. A lot of programs like this can do that, like Unity. So you can multiply it by 4 and get your number. Oh yeah, it was 2.5. Okay, maybe that math wasn't great. But the idea is that you can do your math right in line, which is kind of nice. Just one less thing, one less calculator to have up in a separate window. Another thing that I think is really nice about having an editor that's visual is backgrounds. I know layering backgrounds can get kind of wild sometimes, especially with all the shorthand you can do with it. So again, if you guys are like senior level front-end devs, you don't care, you think I'm dumb, but this is really nice to be able to layer it up. And even if you're real cocky and are like, I do not need any of these helpers, I'm never going to use Webflow in my entire life. Like, I don't know where this business requirement came from. The thing that will save your butt, because somebody on the business side will force you to do so, is when we start dealing with breakpoints, which I'm going to get into in a minute, because breakpoints with backgrounds and Flexbox and grid, it's a wild ride if you don't have a visual editor, in my opinion, and Webflow is butter when it comes to that. I'll scroll a little bit further down. They do have some experimental stuff in here that's experimental. That's not true. There's some stuff that aren't supported in all browsers. Welcome to IE6. But backdrop filters is something new they just added in terms of blurring the background, because every designer who uses Sketch or Figma has decided it needs to look like frosted glass. I'm sure that trend's going to end eventually, but for now, you can put it right in there. There's also filters for, like, say, doing reverse type on a image or graphic, and you might do this if you're using a logo that's black on a white background and then white on a black background, so that reverse type is a good helper. A couple other things I know that it was hard for me to do, just typing in and looking at the visual editor, is doing 3D transforms, especially when you've got the perspective really dialed in and this thing's all warping around and you're going back and forth and back and forth. That is also in here, so I can very simply add and rotate elements and do the things I want to do with them. And even if that would maybe seem simple-ish, they have the built-in transitions as well, and these are the CSS3 transitions that came around probably like 10 years ago or so. And all you're having to do with a transition is effectively, I mean, this is loaded up. It's got like some of the things that you need custom libraries for, at least they used to. And this is like how old I am, but I mean, you could change colors of fonts and backgrounds and margins and all sorts. And this could be on hover, just very simple stuff based on your pseudo tags. So really, it's really nice. I find this really nice. I have all these properties memorized and I can type them fast enough, but as a front-end developer, you will fly, because someone who is a low-code designer getting into Webflow, it's going to take them a long time to do these layouts. They don't totally understand the constructs, but you guys with your like background, you're going to be able to fly and be like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a Flexbox, and move this thing around. You'll do layouts so fast. It's going to be great. The gear icon will allow you to change that tag to be something else. So it could be a section, an address if you want to be super semantic, some SEO folks like that. Nav and main, and then some of those presets I showed on the other side, they're gonna start as a section tag, but you can change it, put your IDs, put your attributes on those as well. And then there is also an inspector here that shows you the classes you've made. So what's nice about this is you can roll over and see what the actual CSS looks like. So that's kind of fun. And this is great for debugging too, I would say, if Webflow is doing something that is not going to work on a certain browser or something like that, which I would say does not happen very much for the Unicorn Road team. I would say we pretty much fly. It's a great way to inspect it, as well as just clean up your, if you work on enough projects and enough frameworks, you might flip between Excel dash things or bounds or calling, we got long tail where you got to like make classes like 100 characters long. You can do all that and audit it here and clean it up, and it's really a great way to do it. This also has an easy cleanup command. If you've got any orphaned classes you created by accident or something like that, you can click this and remove them. So this will just tell you all the places it exists and allow you to clean up. So wow, what a great helper. Last but not least, I just wanted to highlight that I think even if you call BS on all this, because I even tell you, every front-end developer I've ever talked to who's never been in Webflow or using IDE is like like this is like clown shoes, I'm not doing this. Even if you are in that camp after this point or after maybe a couple videos in, I'm telling you, the one thing that you will love about Webflow is being able to check the breakpoints and do the cascading all at once. So here's something just threw together really quick. Here's a grid with 6 blocks. It's a pretty common scenario, right, where you've got a 3-column and maybe you want to adjust it on different breakpoints. So I just wanted to show on the tablet, maybe you're okay, but as you get into mobile landscape or mobile portrait, we switch to blocks, so those elements are blocks. But you could also do something much different. I think that would be a common playbook if you're using a text editor, but you might not be as ambitious in terms of manipulating the grid in some way. So maybe you might say like, I don't know, like maybe we want to do something a little bit different where we want the first column to be 1.5 and I don't know, maybe you do want to reduce it to a 2-column, but you want that first column to be a little bit wider. Maybe it takes up a little more space. So what I think is great about it from a speed perspective, and this of course then can cascade down, and then you can say, you know what, actually let's do a block at this point. What I think is great is that I'd say generally when it comes to workflow and doing styles on breakpoints, I'm always a little bit cautious to do a lot of overrides because it's a lot to keep track of, right? You overwrite something and you're inspecting it, you're like, oh gosh, I didn't overwrite everything, and you're going back and forth and making sure everything lines up. And the IDE in Webflow helps you do this really fast, and you know, you have access to literally every property here that will respond at the breakpoint. It's very quick and easy to see what has changed. So I just wanted to highlight that for you. And then the last thing is this eye icon allows you to toggle a preview. And this within the preview allows you to see it at different scales in the same way and adjust that. And so this is similar to what, you know, Safari and you know, if you've got developer tools, you're going to have this obviously as part of your workflow to be able to change the browser width. But it's very quick, a way to inspect it quickly in the browser you're working in, and then you can publish the staging once you feel like it's working. So that pulls all the Chrome out of there, so you can actually see it in action. So that concludes the overview of how to approach, or how to get juxtaposed into a Webflow interface as a front-end developer. Hopefully that's been helpful. Keep watching. This is part of a whole series, and if you have any questions or comments, you know, put them in there. So we'll see you on the next one.